Roll the ball, let the games commence. From the sideline to the pitch, feel the suspense. Tactics, passion, the fans in a trance. We're here to discuss, give every team a chance. Strap in tight, let the whistle blow. For every win or loss, we'll let you know. This is the All Sports Podcast, feel the thrill. From every tackle, every shot, we got the skill. In the world of football, we're taking the stage. So plug in your headphones, turn the page.
What's good, everybody, and welcome back to the NFL segment of the All Sports Podcast. This is Alejandro Rodriguez, and welcome to Episode 4, Part 3. Monday Night Football showed us two games that we are definitely going to dive in deep a little bit, with the Lions taking on the Seahawks, as well as the Titans taking on the Dolphins. First up, let's talk about the Seahawks-Lions game. First of all, I'm gonna give Jared Goff a standing ovation with some clapping because that man threw a perfect game. Threw 18 times, completed all 18. There was one play that was a little bit scary here and there about an incomplete pass. However, it was negated by a penalty that was thrown on the play. So it allowed Jared Goff to remain perfect. Jared Goff and the Lions did beat the Seahawks 42-29. With Goff throwing for 292 yards in total, which was absolutely bananas. Just watching the highlights of this game was very crazy because the game could have been close multiple times, but there were a lot of flags and penalties being thrown all over the place because, with games like this, these two types of teams, they do play rough football. So, having them go at each other this early in the season was just absolutely fantastic. Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown are now the 8th duo in league history to throw and catch a touchdown from each other. I'll talk about that in a little bit. You did hear me correctly. Geno Smith threw for 395 yards with a 9-yard touchdown pass to rookie tight end A.J. Barner in the third quarter. After he was able to extend a drive on a sneak for the fourth down, he also unfortunately threw an interception in the end zone to Kirby Joseph, who plays for Detroit, with a minute left, basically sealing Seattle's first setback this year. So Geno had a very interesting comment to say. When he was being interviewed, he said, even when we were down 14, we knew we had a chance to come back. And that's kind of been Geno's mentality since becoming the starting quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. He's always been a scrapper. He's always been someone who doesn't really go down without a fight. And you definitely could see that since he started being the starting quarterback for the Seahawks. As he's progressively played every game, you kind of noticed how much more braver he is, or more brazen he is, to try to make a really big comeback in games played, especially in close ones. DK Metcalf had 7 catches on the day, totaling out to 104 yards. However, he did have a very costly fumble that could have helped Seattle go a little bit much closer in the end in the third quarter. I will have to go back and look at the highlights. I do believe it may have been a different quarter. I will confirm that on the X when I do my highlights videos on the page. Again, NFL on X_ for those who don't know. And for those who do know, hop on that X and let's talk. Alrighty. So for the Seahawks, Jahmyr Gibbs did run for 2 touchdowns in the second quarter, and he finished out the game with 78 yards total. David Montgomery for Detroit started a scoring barrage with a 1-run touchdown, capping a 10-play, 93-yard drive, and totaling out to 80 yards from the scrimmage line. So the scrimmage line is when everybody lines up, and that's considered the line of scrimmage. Normally, the center, which is the gentleman who throws the ball to the quarterback, starts off the scrimmage line. Kenneth Walker also had 80 yards on 12 carries and had a career-high 3 touchdowns rushing. Now, this game was very, very fun to watch. Watching Jared Goff come from the Rams and enter Detroit basically as a question mark. Watching him grow as a player has just been really, really interesting to see, because when he came into the NFL, obviously most critics always have, that sense of doubt when it comes to a new quarterback. But just watching how he played in college compared to, when he was starting to come up into the NFL, you could just tell that he kind of like had it in him, had that dog in him. Jared Goff he may not have the most powerful arm where he can like throw 80 yards, on a whim, but his pinpoint precision is always something that I've always admired. And, watching him basically thread the needle multiple times in this game was just absolutely fantastic to watch. So now I'm going to talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown and Goff being the 8th duo in league history to throw and catch a touchdown from each other. So in the third quarter, the Detroit Lions drew up a trick play where Amon-Ra St. Brown threw a 7-yard pass to Jared Goff for a touchdown. And then in turn, Goff threw an 8-yard touchdown to St. Brown in the fourth. So that's very interesting that Dan Campbell would go this type of route. He must have been trying this type of scheme in practice for a very long time and trying to expect the perfect opportunity to use it, because when you do trick plays like that and you have a wide receiver throwing to a quarterback, you really have to trust the quarterback to have those type of hand-eye reflexes, obviously traditionally that he would already have being a thrower. But the hand-eye coordination of a catcher is always very something, difficult in my opinion, that some players can and cannot do. But also you got to give respect to St. Brown because, he's over here trying to throw a pass. You know what I mean? And he didn't come into the NFL as a quarterback. He came into the NFL as a wide receiver. So watching him be able to throw that touchdown is also very cool to watch, because Amon-Ra St. Brown unfortunately hasn't had the most inspirational season this year. So watching him basically get a little rep in as the QB, who knows, he may want to continue to do that. I believe the last time we saw a wide receiver take on a quarterback role, and I could be wrong, was Julian Edelman when he was playing for New England. He did play quarterback in college and then transitioned over as a wide receiver. So I believe it was back then that we kind of saw a wide receiver take over that QB role. But like I said, it was incredible to watch. All right, Seahawks fans, what do you think? This is your first loss of the season. You were perfect up until today. A lot of people that I know, including myself, were a little confounded by watching you be defeated in this manner. I do know that the injury bug has basically plagued almost every NFL team this year. Losing Julian Love, which is your defensive back. You lost 2 defensive ends in Uchenna Nwosu and Leonard Williams, and you also lost your linebacker Jerome Baker. You guys lost a lot of defensive players. So how are we feeling about this little hiccup in the season? I believe Seattle, you guys are hosting New York Giants in Week 5, and what do we think about that? The Giants themselves also lost a couple of players too, including Malik Neighbors. So we kind of have to see if Neighbors will play against you guys next week. Leave your comments in the X page, and, we'll get a conversation going. And Detroit, you now have won your 3rd game. How do we feel? With Jared Goff, kind of being that shining light in the midst of darkness with, how your team, ended their season last year. You guys are now back in the win column. You guys are now 3-1. So I believe your guys' injuries are defensive back Brian Branch, who I believe it was an illness. And then you also lost your Pro Bowler center, Frank Ragnow, with a pectoral muscle injury. So, with those key guys being out, how do you guys feel you guys will do in the upcoming weeks? I believe you guys go out and play Dallas. Yes, you do play Dallas. And, they too also lost two defensive players in their game on Thursday. So what do we think? This is almost kind of like the battle of offenses. Please let us know down on the X. For anybody who didn't know, our X page is NFL on X _. Again, that's NFL on X _. Leave your comments, leave your predictions, leave your suggestions on teams that you would like to discuss going into next week, week 5. And tell me how you're feeling. Again, my name's Alejandro, and I will see you all next week in week 5. Later.
From the fans to the players, we'll cover it all. Catch the spirit of the game, we're ready to ball. From the fans to the players, we'll cover it all. Catch the spirit of the